everyone. Good afternoon or good morning. I am Emma Lowe from CSM Focus, and today I'm joining by Amelia and Julia. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so today we're talking about AI adoption in CS, how CSM workflows, the AI preps, and so on. There's lots to go through today. Do you want to do a little self-intro, Amelia, Julia?
Yeah, I can go first. I'm Amelia Wampler. I'm the co-founder of Formata.io, and we're a meeting prep tool for customer success teams.
I'm Julia McCullough. I am in customer success and have been for about 7 years now. I'm leading different customer success teams and really passionate about scale operations and how to leverage AI for your CS world. Glad to be here.
Well, thank you. As for the audience, before we dive in, you want to put in your chat what is your role today and what stage are you in AI adoption? Just let us know. We'll see the chat from here. All right. Let's see if anyone come in. Let us know you're here. Okay. Julia, you want to start?
Sure. Let me again share our screen. 1 second. Great. You see that okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Great. So today we'll be going through what we're calling an AI 101. We're hoping that this turns into more of a series as well with your feedback. And sort of this is an evolving thing. Every day there's something new that I read about or see another company popping up. So definitely very top of mind and moving very quickly. We'll go through the AI and CS survey results that will be led by Amelia. We'll go through some real life workflows. So how to really put this into practice, implementation and lessons. So really things, what to take away from this, what to think about for your future. And then we'll talk a little bit about what's next. As I mentioned, hoping to turn this into more of a series course for you all. And why are we doing this? I mean, I think everybody here knows. I think you can't get through, one day without having someone bring up AI either in their personal or business life. Getting ahead of this and staying ahead of this is going to be critically relevant in not only CS, but even in your personal life. So you can see here the statistics going from 20% to companies, and this was even in 2024, utilizing AI 72 to 78%. I'm going to assume that number is even higher today. 92% of companies plan to increase investments. And so as you are thinking about being relevant yourself, really leveraging these skill sets and helping you really do your job better, I think in the CS world, there's a lot that comes onto our plate. There's a lot of things that we have to manage day to day. So how do we get smarter about leveraging AI to be able to be much more efficient? And really, where we're in this experimental use stage, again, depending on your comfort with AI, there's so much more that we could be doing from a strategic, a predictive, and an operational way, just to get smarter about our business and also help our customers and clients. And then a little bit about some of the categories of AI. I'm not going to read all of these. We'll send this out after and you'll be able to download this. But when we think about the different ways that AI is showing up today, try to really just break this down into, and these are definitely very much like basics, generative. So as you think of generating content, this is really starting maybe with like how you used it when you first used AI and started thinking about it as a Google search. So definitely, things that you can put in, questions. This can also create content for you, even images. So this is probably the most common one that we've seen utilized, along with I'll jump over to AI agents, which are also changing really every day. And there's a lot of people, customers, and myself included, they're building out more custom AI agents. So really taking more of the brain, really customizing it for not only their business, but really anything. And so right now, this is very much like what you can think of 101 or what you've used today of like a chatbot going on to, you need help, right? Like that's where this pops up. We're seeing it a lot in all of the different sort of SaaS products, right? How are our customers able to use this when they're trying to answer a question? What are they finding in the product, versus having to ask a CSM as an example? And then what I'm really excited about, which I think is definitely an area that has a ton of opportunity, is really around that predictive, right? So I think a lot of the work that we do in CS, not because we don't want to be future focused, but we can be so real time, or looking at just, sort of like hindsight or short-term indication data. And with predictive, just how do we think about forecasting? How do we think about mirroring and having lookalike clients and customers to get further ahead of those potential even upsells or potential risk? So really excited about the predictive space. I think that, the generative and the AI, as I mentioned, are something that we're a little bit closer to today and using more of. And I think predictive is where I see the opportunity and where I see the market going, I would say, in the next, 6 months or so. Any questions about any of those? Popping up, Emma? Nope. Okay, perfect. Keep going. So we wanted to jump in just to a couple use cases. Some of these are probably things that you've maybe dabbled in, you've maybe done. Wanted to just give a few different examples of ways that I've sort of put this individual and company research on what I would say is like hyper research. So, as we look at these different scenarios, we'll go through two. I think these are very common. You either have a new champion at your account, or you have maybe a new executive, as an example. This happens all the time. Also, depending on how many different clients that you're working with, and a new champion at an account, especially if it's an exec, can be potentially a risk. A lot of times they want to come in, make some changes if they have prior vendors that they're working with. So this is just a way to really make sure that you're showing up, you're really relevant, you've done your homework. I think a really key part of being a strong CSM is discovery, right? So like, how do you make that discovery? I said vanilla here. How do you make it very customized to who you're going to be meeting with? Don't have them, have to educate you on everything about themselves or their business, like showing up and ready to be that consultative CSM. So something that I go through when I do this, this is an example actually of a customer that was new to SuperGut, which was a former client when I was working at Order Groove. And basically it's really, you can see the actions on the left-hand side. So I don't know if all of you know, but when you go to LinkedIn, you can actually download that full profile. So a lot of the chat GPTs or GPTs don't actually read the full profile. So you download this into a PDF. You can see that more button on this bottom portion here. You can also then copy paste that into a doc, whatever format works for you in a workflow. And then the one that I use actually for this particular research is called Isaac. So when you're in chat GPT, Isaac is a research tool for individuals. And really, I think probably a lot of you have heard, but the prompts are really what are going to get you the biggest, I say, juice for the squeeze, and then really refine as needed. So this is just an example of, a way to start this prompt. What I would do in this particular case is your prompt is here. So I'm a CSM in, fill in the blank industry, prepping for a business review, right? This can be customized depending on if it's a monthly call, an exec call. This is the provide a summary of key talking points. And so really what you want to do here is upload your doc that you downloaded the LinkedIn profile. So give all of the background of that user. And this is a basic way to just basically put everything in, copy paste this. This prompt will be actually in the link in the back of this deck. And so really what this you can then do is it gives you all of this information back, gives you all of the sub bullets under each of these different bullets that you're asking for. And you can add, delete if you want to get more specific. But within about 2 minutes, you can get this full, data back, right, about this particular user and tailor it to, this individual, Tracy. In this case, Tracy had come from Vital Proteins. And so part of what, came in, and this was just an example of the results. I mean, it's probably, 2 to 3 scrolls deep, if you will. But just so many more things that as you're opening up that discovery, as you're, maybe prepping for your exec to have, a call with this new founder, new CEO, there's just so much more that you can get into. And the more that you prompt and the more that you refine, pulling out these things as well to be able to use in a deck summary, in a email, in, as I mentioned, like an account overview for maybe an exec update internally. There's just so much more and beyond. And I think this is just a really great way to get started and playing around with all of these things, but really going back again to what I mentioned, the more specific and the more that you can save your prompts and you can save your history and get smarter about how you're getting these answers back, I think the more efficient and the more powerful you can become in these types of research scenarios. pause there. Any questions or feedback from the audience on this? No? Great. Okay. So we'll go through very similar research scenario number 2, company research. So we all love our QBRs. They seem to come up very quickly, and depending on how many you're doing. I recall the days not too long ago that we were, going and watching earnings reports or reading, just recaps and summaries, right? And the nice part and the amazing part about, maybe spending 2 hours, I'm probably aging myself, but these are things that you can get now, right? You can get them, again, prompts on the right-hand side, all of the different things that you can get out around key KPIs, goals, competitive landscape. I mean, these are things that I think I would spend hours doing and prepping, right, before a large business review, especially with a strategic or, large enterprise customer. Or if it's a new account that's new to you, right? There's maybe so much more that even that prior CSM or that prior relationship manager didn't have all of this information to hand off to you. So there's so much in here that you can pull out. The specific GPT that I use for company research is called Cameron. Again, there's a variety of different ones that you can go in to. And so again, I think this is really about your very accurate prompt. I think what's really interesting on this one for me is I asked about just, again, CSM and industry X. Very interesting to look at Supergut, which is moving away from doing more D2C. There was so much more in here that I wanted to pull out around data, KPIs, even thought starter questions to, ask the C-suite or ask about, their D2C business specifically. We cared more about that at the time just because that was really where our software was sitting on. So there's just so many things you can pull out into here. And then, as you're looking at all these things, you get all of this, it's all downloaded. Take it to the next step, right? And pull it into an exec summary, pull it into, slides that you can format for G slides or whatever, format you're using. And so there's just, this is, again, these are very I would say fundamental use cases, but we want to make sure that we're starting at this point. And then as we build and go through some of the workflows that Amelia is going to share, I wanted to just make sure we sort of built on this and started in this 101. And would love to hear, from all of you as well, if there's other things that you're doing today that you're finding really interesting and helpful. Great. I'm going to pass this off to Amelia.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Julia. That was a really great example that you shared. I'm going to dive into our survey results. So just for context for everyone, we sent out a survey to CS professionals. We had 66 respondents. I think it's actually up to 69 now. So that's great. And so just for industry context, we had people saying that they had partially implemented AI. They were exploring AI opportunities, pilot testing solutions, all of that. And from those results, we found that the most common use case that people were using AI for was for meeting prep. And then the next one was communication automation and then data analysis. So kind of ties back into what Julia was saying and the examples that she gave and how real life CS professionals are using AI. Mm-hmm. And then here are some examples of tools that people said that they were using. We've split these up into the different types. So you have AI chatbots or just general LLMs, and these can be things like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, or Perplexity. And these are, tools that you can go into and basically use natural language and act as if you're talking to a person to gather that information. And then you can input, files, data sources, all of that to then summarize or get whatever data analysis that you want. The next one was meeting assistants. So I've seen people put in the chat here some examples of meeting assistants that they're using, which is great. And then these are just for summarization and Gong. I know they have a co-pilot inside Gong where you can interact with your meeting data and do some more summarization there. And then the next one was platform integrated AI. So these can be co-pilots within your existing platforms. So like I mentioned with Gong, they have integrated AI into their platform. And then there's HubSpot, Copilot, Salesforce. They have Agentforce now in Einstein. And I think this is a really great way to get started with AI because your company is most likely already paying for one of these products, or you might be using a CSP that has integrated AI. So if you're looking to integrate, this is a great place to start because they already have access to your data. You don't have to worry about, maybe security implications of putting data into a free tool or directly into ChatGPT. And that seems like what a lot of people are starting with. Yeah, and then from the survey results, we had some people note some key barriers to adoption. The main ones were security concern. This is especially happening in regulated industries like banking and healthcare. So if you are working in one of these industries, I would just suggest to be cautious about what information you're putting into ChatGPT or maybe free tools, because there's PII and all sorts of things that that your company may not want you to be putting into those platforms. And then another one was engineering support. So as a CS professional, your company may not have engineering resources to allocate to your team in order to adopt these tools. That's totally fine. We're actually going to get into that later in this slide deck. And I'm going to talk about some easy tools that you can use without engineering support. So you don't have to know how to code. These are very approachable tools. And then data quality issues. This is a big problem for people and a big barrier because AI is only as good as the data that it's working off of. So my suggestion whenever I've been talking to people about using AI and their concerns with it is make sure that your CRM or data sources, your Notion docs, whatever you're using and you want to pull information from, make sure that that data is centralized, all of it's recent and up to date, and it's clean. So that's how you're going to get the most out of AI. And if you're trying to summarize all of that information, it's going to give the best result. And then the next one reported was change management. So just some team adoption and training challenges. I think we're going to talk about this later too, and maybe some solutions that you can do to combat if you have change management issues in terms of adopting AI. But some things that we've seen is, team experimentation, having a Slack channel where you can all share ideas and put in tools that you're using. This can really accelerate, team adoption and just overall buy-in from your company because you're growing awareness about what AI tools are out there and getting people more comfortable with it.
Great.
Awesome. Now we're going to go into some real-life workflows. And the main topics that we're going to cover in this section are AI and automation, pre-built AI agents, custom GPTs, and CS-specific AI tools. And I also want to note that before we get into these workflows, there are some things that AI is really good at right now and things that it's not so good at right now. And these are good to keep in mind so that you know how the AI is working behind the scenes so that you can get the most out of it and your expectations are kind of, realistic for what you're trying to accomplish. So AI is really good at deciphering and summarizing large amounts of data much more quickly than a human can. So that's one use case that we talked about previously. It can automate routine tasks. So I'm going to talk about a little bit about this in automation tools. And then generating content. So there are some tools that, we talked about earlier in terms of generating images. OpenAI's Sora is pretty good at generating images. It's not so good at generating product images. So it's good at basing off of pictures of people or more cinematic images. But when it comes to if you're asking for create an example of a product image of this software, I've found personally that it does not do a great job of that. And then it's also kind of going off of that, it's not good at true originality or deep creativity. We still need humans for that. AI is only working off of human-generated content. So unfortunately, it's really bad at creating original works of art that are like truly original and creative. And then handling edge cases and unknown scenarios. So kind of similar to that, AI is trained on known data patterns. So if it's facing an unknown situation, then it might not handle that the best. And that's why for a lot of tasks, it's really great to have a human in the loop and not have AI be solely responsible for that. And then ensuring safety and security without oversight. Another reason why it's important to have a human in the loop so that you're aware of, security implications and everything. Awesome. Yeah, and I just saw a question in the chat, and it said, would it be possible to get access to the slide deck? Yes, we will be sharing this after the session. Awesome. So I'm going to go into the automation and AI. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Zapier. This is one of the original automation tools out there, and they're incorporating a lot of AI and AI agents now into their platform, which is great. And they also have an in-app copilot. So this is an example of a workflow that you can use, and you can actually, once we send this deck out, you can actually copy and paste this prompt into their copilot. But this is an example of, sending of a workflow, pretty common workflow that you could automate. And this is sending, personalized welcome email, creating a Google Drive project folder automatically, adding this client to CRM with its proper tags, and then sending calendar booking link for an onboarding call, and then creating a project template in your management tool. So what I did in this scenario was I copy and pasted this prompt into Zapier's Copilot. So I just made a free account, and then they make it pretty easy. You can just say create new automation, and then I copy and paste it in there, and then it'll automatically create this workflow for me. So it definitely speeds up the process in terms of creating automations. And I would like to note that automations are different from AI. So but they're integrating a lot more AI into these. The AI component comes in whenever you say, draft a follow-up email for me. And then the automation is send this email after my meeting. So then you can see, this is the workflow in Zapier. And then you would just go through and hook up all of your accounts to those automations. Does anyone have any questions about this workflow specifically? Cool.
Actually, Amelia, I have a question.
Yeah.
So this is Zapier, right? Yes.
Yep.
Do you have a preference between NAN and Zapier, or Make and other automation, or do you, from your use case, what do you use the most?
Yeah, I would say for more general automation workflows, Zapier is very approachable, and they've been around the longest. I think they're doing a really great job of, adding to their platform. And they have, I think, the most integrations out of any of those platforms. So they're the ones that are most likely to have, if you're using a specific tool, they're the ones that would be most likely to have the integration for that. So that's something to keep in mind too for whatever tool you're using. I know N8N is pretty good for developer use cases. And then there are some other tools that are doing AI agent automation too, which we'll get into.
Great.
Yeah, thanks. If audience, you have any questions, feel free to put in the comment. We're monitoring the chat, and we can stop anytime to answer your question.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go into AI agents and some pre-built options. These are really great if you don't have the time to try and create these, or you need some inspiration. There's some really great tools out there that have some pre-built use cases that you can start out with. And one example is on the right. The screenshot that I have on the right here is from Relay app. And then some other examples I included on the left are Gumloop and Stack AI. So the example that I'm using here, this is an email follow-up AI agent workflow. And this is similar to the Zapier automations, but these apps are trying to have more autonomous work. So that's whenever I say AI agents, there's a little bit more autonomy when it comes to these workflows. So in this use case, they're creating a file, and like what the trigger is when a file is added to the meeting recordings folder in your Google Drive, and then after that, it'll take those notes, and then it'll run it through an LLM, and then it'll draft a follow-up email, and then it'll create a draft to send through your Gmail account. So this is more autonomous, and it'll actually take these actions without having your approval involved. But you can also, add clarifications in these workflows saying like, you need my approval before this email is sent out. So this is something to keep in mind whenever you're using AI agents, is if you want them to be completely autonomous and taking action without your approval, make sure that workflow is conducive to that requirement. If you're not comfortable with that, then maybe create some guardrails around it.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think this is a feature as well in some of the large, listening tools. I think to your point, this is another way to just like sort of customize and go around maybe some of the, if you don't have some of those larger, gongs and things of the world, right?
Exactly. And you can get started with these tools for free or very low cost. So they're pretty approachable, and they have security certifications. So there's an extra security layer there.
Great. Okay.
Awesome. So this is pretty similar to what Julia was saying earlier in terms of the Isaac tool that she was using and referring to. I think that's a custom GPT that was created.
Yep.
So we're going to go through and the scenario of like if you want to create your own custom GPT, or if you want to go into ChatGPT and use specific customer success ones that have been made. The image that's in the upper right-hand corner is one made by Churn Zero. So this is a good way to get started too. If you're looking for customer success specific AI and having it tailored to your needs, this is a great option as well. Or if you want to create it for your specific use case and create a custom GPT, you can actually go to ChatGPT, start the custom GPT builder. You just hit create, and then the GPT builder will open. And then you add whatever instructions or prompt that you want to get started. So in this example, I said, you are a customer success assistant for SaaS companies. You help CSMs prepare for meetings, summarize customer data, and suggest next steps. And you can also upload files like PDFs, knowledge bases, so that your custom GPT can reference them and pull in more accurate data. And this ties into what I was saying earlier in terms of like your data, making sure your data sources are clean and up to date, because this custom GPT will pull information from those sources. And then you can customize the tools like web browsing, code interpreter, like if you're doing calculations or data analysis. And then they also have like image generation. And you can generate charts as well. So I've used ChatGPT to generate some charts in these situations, where that if you want to include them in a QBR, you can do that. And then once you have everything set up to your liking, then you can preview and test, and then you can publish with, and so anyone can access it using GPT, or you can keep it private and use it, with yourself or with your internal team.
I'm curious to know how many people are using custom GTP for your company right now. I have a little tip actually. If you are not using image generation for your particular GPT for this use case, sometimes if you turn it off in your GPT, will actually make it faster when they run the,
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Awesome. Move on to the next.
Well, Amelia, do you actually prefer to create different GPT for different use cases? For example, this is a QBR GPT, this is a email GPT, etc.
Yeah, I would say that if you have very specific workflows that you want to use, and different data sources that go with different workflows, that's the best way to go about it. So because then you're shrinking the context window of what that AI is basing its responses off of. So if you put too much information into it or you give too much data to the AI, I've seen in a lot of situations where it can start to hallucinate. It can create wrong answers or summarization. So making sure that the data you're putting in there is very targeted, and making sure that what data is going into it, so that you can you as the human can fact check it if needed.
That's a good point.
Great. Move on to the next one.
Awesome. So now we're going to go into some CS specific AI tools. I mentioned this earlier. A lot of teams are already using built-in AI tools within their CSPs, like Vitally, Gainsight, or HubSpot. And these often look like co-pilots or in-app AI features. This is a really great way to get started and start playing around with the capabilities with the tools that you already have access to and that you're already paying for. And then I'll talk about our tool a little bit. So I'm the co-founder of Formata.io, and we're an AI-powered meeting prep tool for customer success teams. And our tool is we're working on helping you with your workflows in terms of meeting prep, and if you are trying to automate QBR creation, we're pulling in data from your email, your CSP, so Vitally, your Slack messages, meeting recordings, and all of that. And we can take that data and then summarize it and give you a meeting brief delivered in Slack before all of your meetings. So another way you could do this is you could create an AI agent or automation workflow to try and create this yourself. We basically pre-package this for you, and we have AI agents working behind the scenes to look through all of your data and then generate this content for you, so you don't have to create those workflows. And then we have team features where you can share this information with your team members and all of that. Some other tools that you could look into are Sturdy AI, and a newer one is Assembly AI. These are more specific to customer success. And Sturdy AI does something similar where they're looking through your different data sources and then surfacing the information that's relevant for churn risks.
Yeah, I think that goes back to some of the predictive AI that I was talking about, right? In the beginning of our kickoff of the meeting, really just thinking again, how are you creating lookalikes? What are those indicators that, especially if you have a very large customer base, this is a great way to, pull those things forward. I mean, health score still needs that human element to it, but what a great way to be able to, add in another layer just to get smarter about risk or even upsell on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. Someone put in the comment section, what data sources do you commonly include in these prompts or agents? Yeah, this is a really great question. So for me personally, I like to connect my CRM, which is HubSpot. So in the use case that I showed before with the Zapier automation,
You want me to go
I
back?
was awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so we were connecting to HubSpot and then Google Drive and Calendly. And this is like an example from like my specific workflows. If you have your own data sources or if you have like a different CRM or a different CSP, you can definitely customize this to your needs. But this is an example of like how I would do it. And then you just pull information from those sources, and then you can either summarize the information. I could also have this send me a Slack message, since we use Slack at Formata, and it could send me a Slack message summarizing past emails or a meeting transcript.
Yep. And actually, Anna from the audience also shared their use cases as well. I'm going to pull on the screen how they use a note taker here. So they feed the CSP with notes and action from a note taker for integration. So, and at the end, the native AI functionality of the CSP help understand the sentiment, the customer.
Yeah, that's great.
It's a good use case. Anybody else want to share their use case with us? I'd love to learn. All right, let's move on.
Great. I'll go back to where we were. Yeah, and just one piece of advice too on, especially depending on what CSP you're using. If you aren't, leveraging the AI components, a lot of times it's partnership with, your ops team, your CS operations. I don't doubt that they're researching it, but a lot of times these things are just maybe not even flipped on, but they're part of your overall, service or contract. So definitely make sure that you're asking if these things are included, available, just because a lot of them have them pre-built and they're usually not, depending again on the plan you have, is something that is not an upsell or anything that's an additional cost. Great. Anything else on this one, Amelia?
I don't think so. I mean, if you have any questions about any of these tools specifically, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section.
Great. Perfect. And I think something that we hit on as we were going through this is really this adoption piece, right? And so as you think of integrating this not only into your daily workflows, how do you think about, especially from a leadership perspective or trying to do a team influence? These are just some things that we were talking about has worked and has worked for just team adoption in my world. So really, we talked about a Slack channel. Sharing best practices, learnings, prompts. There's so much going on with different tools and different research, testing, joining webinars like this goes into dedicated time. I think, for myself, trying to just really block out, 1 to 2 hours a week, if possible, to just do more research to see what's going on. There's a variety of links at the end of this deck as well. From different places that we all found extremely helpful. So really being intentional about this and creating focus time, which I know can be challenging in the busy calendars, but it's so important and just will help with your ongoing efficiency. Some of how we've also incorporated this into the team is incorporating this into team goals. So as an example, quarterly, what are the examples of things that you have made more efficient, right? Whether that be meeting prep, or helping to support an onboarding of a tool. Just really, how are you using this? And something that I think came out a few months ago, I think it was the Shopify CEO basically said, anything that we're going to be spending money on now, if you haven't gone through the how we could solve this with AI or how will AI help this, it's going to be something that is going to be the first question, right? So again, like just really thinking about the adoption across your team. And if you start to come with that mindset, I think it'll be much more likely for the team to understand that it is part of their goals and growth. And then again, team learning, there's so much out there, so much content. And so I think just like this, and the CS world is always so helpful. Everybody is, that's our, I think, DNA of just wanting to help people. And so if someone is doing something really interesting, send them a message, ask if they were up for 15 or 30 minutes of coffee. So just definitely, it takes, a team, not only yours internally, but I think just in the overall CS ecosystem. Emma or Amelia, anything to add?
I would say there are groups, Slack groups you can join where people are sharing these resources as well. CS in Focus is an example of that. If you join the Slack group, people are always sharing information. Another group is Women of Customer Success. I see a lot of people sharing resources there. And then Customer Success Collective. So definitely look into those for networking purposes and additional CS specific AI use cases and tools.
Yeah, those are great. And meetups too, depending on where you are, right? There's a lot of events and things happening as well from those. Great. Emma, I could pass it back to you for any additional questions that you're seeing in the chat.
I think we're going to give some time for the audience. I actually have some questions for you, Julia.
Sure.
I think you did share a couple ways to, it's all about the adoption of the piece, I think, of like whatever new tools. If you were to start, like fresh start, where would you go first? Like what's the learning path would you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when I was starting to think about this and actually hosted an internal training, on just AI 101, I really started with looking at a lot of the resources that were out there already, right? Like there's tons of different digital summits, AI scaling. Part of my role is really thinking about efficiency and operations. So not to reinvent the wheel, but sort of like, I think that's a really great foundation for what others are doing. I think you have to be cautious because you can go down a rabbit hole because there is so much. And so I think it's really about, okay, if I wanted to start and think about, the areas where what are the things that I'm doing that are taking a ton of my time, right? So like when you think of maybe you're constantly doing a, overview of a specific feature in, your product, or you're, prepping for, your weekly calls, as Amelia said, like, or other meetings. So I think it's really about the things and thinking about how much time that you're spending on activities, and then really starting to, think about the ways that you can be more efficient there, right? So we covered some of those things around research. I think it's also really getting comfortable with the tooling. And I would say, spend time in one. Like there's ChatGPT, there's Perplexity. You saw the different GPTs that can be created. Again, it can get very overwhelming very quickly. So I think it's really starting with, sort of baby steps, if you will. Maybe you start with prompts if you're not using that yet. And then how do you build onto that into some of the other workflows that Amelia walked through? And then I think, as I put in here, it's like iterate. And so the smarter that you get, and the more that you actually, if you especially have a pro license in any of these chat GPTs, all of these things, even in Perplexity, right? Like in pro, it's going to start to save that and start to actually be able to learn the way that you're talking, your different languages. I mean, there's just so many ways to enhance and iterate, but I think I would start really with, just dipping the toe in, and then also thinking about the things that are, you're spending time on that could be maybe scaled or in more of a one-to-many motion.
That's right. Like just deep down, what is actually taking, what kind of tasks you want to automate first.
Yep.
Amelia, you mentioned something about automations versus the actual AI. That's something. I know. Okay, so if you were to drive adoption for a team, I'm going to throw the same question for you, right? Where will you go first?
Yeah, I think my approach, especially as a founder, I mean, we're a small team, so I'm in the same boat. I need to find ways to basically increase my own productivity and our team's productivity, and that can take a lot of different forms. So going back to what Julia was saying in terms of reflecting on what your day-to-day workflows look like in terms of meeting preparation, It may be outreach to customers, creating QBRs, generating, decks for customers or internal decks, those kind of things. Just take stock of everything that you're currently doing and then do some Google searches. And I think that's honestly like a really great way to start too. Do some Google searches and say, can AI help me with this workflow? And you're probably going to have a lot of results show up. For one example of that, maybe, I want to create decks faster. There's an app called Gamma, and they use AI to generate any type of deck that you're trying to create. So I use this personally just to speed up the process and honestly ideate about what the best format would be for me, or like structure, to create a deck. So I actually did that with this presentation. I created a rough draft of this presentation deck in Gamma, and then I kind of built off of that. And it gave me some really great ideas, and it was honestly a great starting point. So I think just having that mindset of like treating AI kind of like an intern and saying, help me ideate with this workflow, or help me completely remove it from my day-to-day if it's possible with AI. So if you can use automations to completely automate away having to manually do that workflow, and then using AI to like generate email copy and then send it for you, that can help you save a lot of time.
Do you use like different like cloud or Perplexity to cross-reference, or what do you think of the hallucination? How do you minimize that?
I would say making sure, so going back to like the custom GPTs, in terms of like minimizing hallucinations, is making sure that whatever data you're putting in there for it to pull from is up to date and meets like your own standards. It can still hallucinate even if you have information in there, unfortunately. The way I approach this is like I always review everything that it gives back to me. So I use Claude a lot, so Anthropic's Claude, their chatbot, and I put our survey results into Claude, and I said, "Hey, Claude, can you summarize these survey results and create a summarization and pull out insights?" And it did a really great job of creating kind of like an outline for me of the best way to like present that information. But then once I went through and actually read it and cross-referenced the data that it was putting in there, a lot of the percentages were wrong. Like it was just making up things. So it can definitely still happen. Like just be aware of that. And even if you have like the correct information that you're uploading into Claude, it can still make mistakes. But you can minimize those mistakes as long as your CRM is up to date, or whatever information that you're connecting with it.
Julia, do you have a preference between those tools yourself?
We've really used some of the larger, so like as an example, like Gong and other listening tools. They do a great job at the summarizing, creating email, creating follow-up and next steps that can then push into, your CSP or into different Slack channels. Again, I think there can be a lot of different context in there. And so I think the more that you can also customize and put in keywords for listening, as an example, something that would come up just because of the way that our product was built was a customer would talk a lot about cancellations. And as a customer success manager, you hear cancellations, right? And the system is going to think, oh, no, right? Like that is inherent risk when we're actually just talking about a product feature. And so I think there's things like that you just have to be aware of. So the sentiment on that, as an example, would automatically be read. So what we did was basically train the system and put in that, that word, that keyword to say like, hey, this does not equal, right, this sentiment. So the more that you can start to create those things, you can create that active listening and customize it to your different use cases. I would say that that's really like the human touch of it. Again, it's only as smart as, the prompts that you give it, and you continue to reiterate. And it's very specific, right, to what Amelia was saying, making sure that it's only looking at a certain silo, or it's not pulling in keywords that might mean something else in like the general ecosystem, but are very different to like your company or your specific customer set.
Yeah, I'll also add that it's very specific to like the prompts that you're using, and we have examples of prompts in the resources page that we'll be sharing after this. So definitely go look at those in terms of like specific prompts that you can start out with and start playing with. We found with Formata that it is like prompting is kind of an art, and you have to be very specific. And so in our platform, we have, hundreds of like prompts that we're using in order to get very, very specific information. So that's also the benefit of using pre-built tools, is that they're doing a lot of that work behind the scenes for you, and you don't have to, spend hours and hours perfecting your prompting skills.
Yeah, training and all that.
Right. So thank you for sharing. Yeah, we can probably set another session about how to use the different prompts or different scenarios.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we had just said, future outlook, right? Like evolving role, things that we can start to talk about again around like more of the predictive side of things, against other ways that you can not only do research, but start to think about leveraging this for forecasting, for other different use cases. So, I think at first when everyone, I think probably last year, is like, oh, is this going to replace, all of the CSMs, everything that what we do? And I highlighted on here, no, it's meant to empower, right? Like this is an amazing way to take out so many of the things, right? Like the days of, note taking, even when you're on calls, such a distraction, right? Or writing follow-up emails, or creating a project tracker for everything that came from a, strategic call. All of those can be done in minutes now versus hours. And really, when you think about this as well, thinking about reactive issue resolution, shifting to strategic focus, right? So there's so much I know that we chase with the support with, customer issues. Those are still going to come up and happen. But for the things that we can take off of our plate to be able to resolve those things, and not only think more strategically, again, with tools to help from a predictive perspective, the more that we're going to be driving value to our customers. And then we talked about this, right, with the human and AI collaboration, with the hallucination. I mean, the more, again, that you're using this, the more that you're even, training it and in LLMs, your own language, right? There's lots of different overlays that you can do, even to make your emails sound more like you, right? So it's all of these things that you can really use it as an assistant. If you do, a generic prompt as an example in ChatGPT, a lot of times you can tell it's written by that. So the more that I think you can also leverage it to really sound like yourself and your own voice, I think that is really where the human and AI collaboration comes in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And in terms, like touching on what you said earlier, Julia, in terms of companies and leadership they're thinking about how can we first solve this with AI. I think that's also true in terms of hiring.
Yep.
If I was hiring a CSM, I would ask them, how are you using AI to automate a lot of your workflows?
Yep.
And like tell me specific prompts that you're using. Like just being AI literate, I think, is super important for the future of, jobs, like
experience,
everything.
Yep, absolutely. And the investments, right? I mean, I think going through what we're thinking about, like it's like, oh, do we need another, as we look at capacity, right? We look at the account ratio, CSM to types of accounts to overall book of business to number of accounts. Can a tool help solve for this, right? Can we overlay things within our overall team that are going to remove the things that are taking, a principal CSM hours to do during a week? So I think that's also where I'm seeing more of the, investment, right? It's not as much in just headcount now. They're shifting that investment into tooling so that it isn't just about, another CSM head to help with scale. Great. And then, as we mentioned, there's some resources here. There's so many out there, but these are some of the things that we leveraged as part of creating this presentation. As I mentioned as well, I think we'd love to come back and do, a 201. And there, here is our just way to contact us. Would love to continue this conversation, keep it going. That's what I said, the beauty of customer success in this world. I think we're always willing to help each other and always willing to collaborate and share best practices, just like on this webinar today.
So I just put on the screen is a QR code to download our slides. Right now, if you're online, you can quickly scan it. And also I'll share the link in the comment right now, so you have a copy of slides. Any questions, feel free to reach out to Amelia and Julia on LinkedIn. And we'll come back for our part 2.
Love it.
All right, thank you. Any questions, everybody? Last minute? All right, thank you so much. We'll come back for part 2. Thank you again, Julia and Amelia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.